All right, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adit Mahmood. I'm here with my normal co-host Hunter, and today we're gonna quickly talk about some major news stories in baseball, some in football, and then in college football. And then in college. So what were your? So I know the Nationals did struggle a little bit. But what other than them struggling, was there anything noteworthy?
Honestly, nothing really. They're 25-33 still. The game got rained out last night. They played the Tampa Bay Rays. I think they only beat them once, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I just haven't been paying as much attention. There was an article today from a couple of the Nationals beat reporters saying that they should keep Max Scherzer. If they're really out of the race, I don't see how they do that. That's probably your biggest tradable asset. No one's really going to want a lot of the other players on the team that you can make available. I think you'd probably be doing him a service and trying to give him another chance to get a ring, while also probably getting a really good packaging from him. I mean, this is still one of the premier pitchers in the league, and I think you could definitely get a strong top 100 prospect and potentially a roster player, I think, in return for him, or honestly just two top 100 prospects. I think Scherzer is definitely worth that. But it's just more of the same. They're in last place. They're struggling. Nothing really noteworthy happened this week. I mean, it's just the same thing with this team. We'll have to see what happens towards the end of the season, but it's going to be a struggle. They're just I think the biggest thing is when their pitching is not above average, they're not winning. Their hitting is not good enough this year outside of Juan Soto and Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner probably. Outside of that, just not a lot going on. And you need your bullpen to continue to pitch well, and they're taxed a lot of times, and they're just not getting enough runs. And that's just, you're not going to win that way, and that's basically, I think, been the storyline this season. So it's just been a really big struggle for them.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to briefly talk about that last point you just had about how you think Scherzer's the only piece. Because I think Corbin could. I mean, granted, you guys might need to start rebuilding. So you guys might need to start with that farm system.
I think they'll get Corbin though. They've signed him to a long-term deal. I don't think they're going to give up on that yet.
Yeah. No. Okay. So yeah. So I guess my question was, so Scherzer, you think it's the only trade piece you guys have? You don't think Josh Bell won't get?
His value is probably so low right now.
He's think Schwarber. You probably want to get rid of Carter Kieboom.
Yeah, I don't know. They might try to give him a little bit more time, but I mean, for Josh Bell, his value is so low. He's having a dreadful season. Schwarber, I don't think is going to get traded. They might try to bring him back. I know it's probably time to rebuild, but you also got to take care of the two big guns that are going to be up soon. Trey Turner at the end of the year, I think his contract is up. I think it is. I think it's the end of this year.
It's this year or next year.
Yeah, it's one of the two. They got to get him signed very soon. You got to have a foundation in place, even though they're probably going to be looking to rebuild here. It's just been a really big struggle. But maybe you could look to move a few bullpen pieces. Do you move Will Harris? I don't know. You're probably not going to move Brad Hand if you can move him. You're probably not going to move Daniel Hudson. But it's just a lot of their players are just a bit older. I don't know if a lot of teams are going to want them. I think Scherzer's the big movable asset here.
Yeah, so I think we can kind of go to that point with the Orioles because I know for sure they're going to be trading some players out there. Yeah, but I mean the big thing here, I mean, they have rebounded over the last week. I mean they took 2 out of 3 from the Twins. I mean who cares? They're the Twins, right? They went and took 2 out of 3 from the Cleveland baseball team. I refuse to call them by the other name because they've now acknowledged they're going to change it, including a game on Sunday, which actually felt more like a Ravens and Browns game because the Orioles won 18-5. So, and then they split the series against the Mets, and they won 10-3 in that one. The big news is this is still going to be a team that sells. Cedric Mullins is proving the case why he should definitely be considered for starting, not just be in the All-Star game, but starting, because his numbers have been ridiculous. And what else was there? And you know how every team has to be represented at the All-Star game? Every team has to be represented.
Yes.
You can make a solid case that the Orioles have 3 legitimate All-Star all-stars, like John Means, Trey Mancini, and Cedric Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you're not going to get two of them because, one, it's a popularity contest, and two, teams and players are going to look at the record and say, well, we normally only get one, but I mean, the Orioles deserve two. But we'll see what happens. I think Trey gets in just from the human story alone. Cedric deserves to get in because his numbers have just been incredible. John Means, depending on how well he comes back, because he threw, I think, 30 pitches, but then had shoulder fatigue and left the game. So, and this was the same shoulder fatigue that got him out of the opening day start last year. So, if he recovers and he has a couple of good starts, because the guy has a 2.28 ERA this year. So, he has a couple starts. I mean, you got to imagine he might be in consideration. He might be in that list of those 12 pitchers. Like, if you take 7 or 8, like he's in that list of like the 12 takes. I mean, that could be interesting to watch. And then trade value wise, if Freddie Galvis can get trade value, great. Michael Franco, obviously, so you have guys on 1-year deals. But the big thing here is there's a big four that they have. Anthony Santander, who's not a free agent for another few years. John Means, who's not a free agent for another 3 years. Trey's he's a free agent after next year. But it would be such a demoralizing decision if you trade Mancini, especially after everything he's been through.
Yeah.
Cedric Mullins, he's not a free agent until the end of 2026. So this guy, you could be able to get a haul for him. And then when you look at the Orioles farm system, they have talent in that farm system. The problem is that you could get talent back from these guys, but some of these guys, like an Adley Rutschman, a Grayson Rodriguez, or DL Hall, they should come up pretty soon. So now the question then will become, when do you flip them? So I think a guy like Paul Fry, even a guy like Paul Fry, who's been solid, but he's not a free agent for another 3 years. I mean, I think that a lot of Orioles fans, I don't think so. I think Santander or Mancini gets traded. I think maybe a reliever, maybe Tanner Scott. Maybe a Tanner Scott gets traded. I mean, because if you're lefty and you throw 100 with a good slider, even though you're inconsistent, teams will like that. But I think that they just have so many players right now that do have value, but they aren't going to be, other than Mancini, they're not going to be free agents for another 2-3 years. And the Orioles window for being competitive might be in 2023. So who knows if they trade some of these guys. So it's going to be really interesting. They do have a series against the Rays, and then 4 against the Cleveland baseball team, and then they go face Toronto for the first time this year. So we'll see what they do there. I mean, they'll probably, if we can get 1 out of 3, that'll be great. If we can get 2, even better. 3, excellent. But let's quickly talk about this theory that Pete Alonso has. So basically what he's saying is MLB manipulates the ball based off of the free agent market. And people have talked about like the juicing the ball when it's a pitcher's heavy market, and then deading ball when it's a hitter's friendly market. What are your quick thoughts on that?
Based on the free agent market, that's interesting. I didn't really think of it that way. I guess, the more free agent big bats there are, maybe they'll juice it up a bit.
They'll deaden it because because it's whatever position's more relevant.
Oh, so it's more opposite. Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. So the more free agent big bats there are, that helps the pitchers. They'll dead the ball because they don't want them all those numbers, and then the less big bats there are, they'll actually juice the balls. I guess it maybe makes sense in a way, but I don't know if I'm going to buy it just yet. I think they would juice the balls in other ways, in other situations, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to the whole like foreign substance, like all this stuff, like trying to increase offense, and then they took a massive step forward. I mean, personally, I think if you're going to use foreign substance, if pitchers are going to use foreign substance to manipulate the spin rate, then if I'm a batter, I know I sound like a 65-year-old man, but actually swing and actually hit the ball the other way might be the advantage. Because I think Jeff Passan actually brought up a fantastic point of why it's become such a big deal now, and he kind of linked it back to steroids. And he said, and what he said was, I don't think the pitchers cared about steroids until it impacted their financial situation or how much money they would make. And then I don't think batters cared about foreign substances until they realized, oh yeah, the league wide average is 237. I mean, do you think that could be here a reason why foreign substance now they're making a big deal out of it, and why you're starting to see these discussions about manipulating balls, corked bats, foreign substance?
I think so, but also like it's been going on now with this discussion for like the last decade and a half. I mean, ever since that whole scandal with A-Rod, and I mean, it was a different situation, but I think what was it, Albert Pujols? I think was also in it as well, and like, so I wish there was like a time in this world where we weren't talking about this with like the foreign substances, and
you literally have to go back to the 1890s.
Yeah, I just wish there wasn't there was a time where this doesn't get brought up, like not even every year, but just every week, because you don't see this kind of stuff happen in like, the NFL. I mean, okay, Deflategate, whatever, but like, it's like a different story, but like, it's like a one-time thing, but it's just.
Because here's the thing, because if it's not sign stealing, it's betting. If it's not betting, it's more sign stealing. If it's not sign stealing, it's steroids.
And it's juicing the ball.
And then, because remember, 1920, spitball was banned. You can't scuff baseball. Teams were doing that. I mean, that's why I said, like, if you want a pure time for baseball, you literally have to go back to, here's the sport. It's called baseball. Because ever since then, pitchers have taken advantage. So, I mean, it's definitely an interesting aspect. I think that we are all desensitized to it, that we don't really care about it unless it involves us financially. And I think that's what the player's perspective is. Like, that's why I think what Jeff Passan was saying is true. Like, if the batting average, like, do you think if the batting average was 275, that this whole foreign substance thing would not be an issue? Would be an issue?
No, I don't think so. No.
And if steroids didn't cause people to hit on average 5-10% more on average than what they were hitting before, do you think steroids would have been a big issue?
No. You had it happen with Barry Bonds. Then you had, I'm pretty sure Josh Hamilton did some, if I'm not mistaken, way back.
Josh Hamilton, I mean, Brady Anderson with the Orioles. I mean, he had that one year where he hit like 40 home runs, and then every other year in his career he hit like 15 to 20.
Yeah.
Brad Roberts may have used steroids. I mean, if you weren't using it, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing about baseball. Like, I think we all have to understand that there's always going to be a form of cheating. It's just that what type of form and how can we regulate it. And just one last note: what are your thoughts on Liam Hendriks, the closer for the White Sox, saying that MLB should institute a certain type of foreign substance? So instead of saying you can't use foreign substance, saying, okay, you can use spider tack, you can use bullfrog. That's it.
I mean, as long as it doesn't like drastically affect your play, I think that would be fine. But it only has to be like one of them. You can't just can't make ones that are just awful.
Yeah, like here's one. Like, I actually like that. I mean, baseball is such a sport that's synonymous with cheating that I feel like MLB has a chance to regulate it, and they haven't earned the benefit of the doubt. Because even with sign stealing, that could rear back its ugly head. Like, steroids were pretty good. We occasionally get it. And then the last point, like, foreign substance we're getting here, we'll occasionally get it in the future, but it's now at its major point here. Sign stealing, we're going to get it. That was a big thing. I think that in 2-3 years, I think my prediction is that we're going to be talking about a major sign stealing scandal in 2-3 years. Because not for teams that might not be doing it right now, but it'll be like, oh yeah, in 2015, this is what we were doing. And then once you get the second team getting busted, then you're going to get a third team or fourth team. So it's going to be something really interesting. Were there anything for the Steelers?
Juju talked to the media. Basically said, the reason why he went back was because of loyalty. It sounded like he doesn't know if he's going to be back next year. I think the Steelers actually, the funny thing is, I think they have more salary cap space next year than they had for this year. So they might be able to make room for him. But he did say at his media thing that he knows what he's worth and that he's going to be looking for something more long term. So definitely don't know if the Steelers will do that. Remember, they also have to pay TJ Watt after this season. They have to pay Minkah Fitzpatrick, I believe, after this season as well. You're going to choose them over Juju every day. He also did say he wants to see more work in the slot. He's really excited to come back and play with Ben, confirmed that it's basically his last year. But I think that was like the big stuff this week. It was mainly just Juju talking to the media, just saying, he said he confirmed he took less money to come back, and he liked the fit better with Ben. And he said it was mainly just a loyalty thing to him, so which is understandable. Otherwise, there's really not much to report. The mini camp basically started. They're still working through the offense and stuff. It's pretty crazy that we're almost a month and a half away till training camp, so we're getting closer again to the season. Getting underway. I mean, we're only 3 months away from the NFL season starting again. I mean, like I said, a month and a half until training camp, so. This should be fun times, but yeah, not a whole lot this week in terms of Steelers talk, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think
anything on the Ravens?
Yeah, so I'm not going to create a banner for the Ravens notes, but pretty much they didn't get Julio. There's a lot of upwards, like, oh, why didn't you do more? It's like, well, I don't think Julio would have really helped too much, but they did re-sign Gus Edwards on a 2-year, $10 million deal, which when combined with the second-round tender, is actually now a 3-year, $13 million deal. His cap hit this year goes from I forgot what it was, to now down to 1, so he's making $1 million this year. It gives us about 1.1 million in savings, and then it's 3 and then 4 next year. So it's a good deal. I think a lot of people either underrate or overrate Gus Edwards' numbers. I think that he is a perfect fit for this offense. I think that with J.K. Dobbins and Lamar, I think this. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this guy gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage or has negative yardage 1.34% of the time last year, right? And now it's behind an awful offensive line. So, like, this is a guy that the Ravens, what they need to do is create these they need to hit on these small and intermediate plays, not necessarily the big plays, because those plays set up the big plays. So the more consistent you are with those 5 to 15-yard plays, especially if you have a run game, the more the defenses have to focus on that box. And then you have a guy like Hollywood Brown with 4.3 speed or Rashad Bateman, then they get more open. So that's what that's why I like Gus Edwards. Now apparently Todd Gurley visited the Ravens yesterday. He is a Baltimore native. I think that's one of the reasons why Ravens fans are excited. My thoughts on that: I would welcome Todd Gurley as long as he doesn't cost too much money. I mean, because when you think about it, your running back room is going to be J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Todd Gurley, and Justice Hill if he's still on the team, with Lamar and Pat Ricard and Ben Mason. I mean, that's a lot of people, but that's still a very good, especially with Dobbins, Edwards, and Todd Gurley being good pass catchers as well. So like now you have that versatility where you don't necessarily have a guy who's known for just running. Now you have 3 guys who can run and pass. So like I said before, going back into that whole short intermediate routes, they can do that because now when you see Gus and when you see, let's say, Gus and JK on the field at the same time, and you see Lamar, it's like, how are you going to do? Like, how versatile? Like, what is everyone going to do? And I think that allows Lamar to be the point guard and just find those soft plays and then stack those plays on top of each other. The other thing I like about signing Gurley is it's a 17-game season, and the Ravens' toughest stretch is the last part of the year. So you have to imagine if that run game is the engine of your offense, and if that run game starts to falter, the pass game starts to falter, and then your defense starts to falter. So that run game is strengthened, your pass game strengthened, your defense is good. So that keeps your team running. And getting a guy like Todd Gurley, all it does is strengthens that run game and just makes it harder to defend. And so I welcome it. I don't think it'll cost too much. I think that if he does sign, it is literally a hometown discount because he is from the region.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, if you're a Steelers fan, would you be nervous? Like, with all the additions they made with Bateman and Wallace and Watkins and the two new receiver coaches with the offensive line, like, if Todd Gurley were there with Gus and J.K., like, you still wouldn't be scared of that run game?
I'm not Todd Gurley. I'd be more scared of Dobbins, I think, and Gus Edwards than Todd Gurley, to be honest. I don't really think Gurley is that good anymore.
And he's not going to be asked to like be the bell cow. Like he's going to be asked for like 90 carries, maybe 90 to 100 carries. Yeah.
That's why I fear someone like Dobbins a lot more. He's the bell cow back, and he can make a lot of people miss. And Gus Edwards, he's very shifty. I like the way he plays. I'm probably much more fearful. Of course, of Lamar in the backfield, how he can make everyone miss as well. Some of the receivers they added obviously are better than they were last year. But, just overall with the Steelers and them, these games are always knife fights. So you're always looking at a split between these two teams each year anyway. So it doesn't
So pretty much we'll see if his internet connection goes.
Maybe okay. It just like
whether it comes. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, the StreamYard or something.
Right.
It was the site. I mean, too much. 90 carry, like 5 billion touchdowns against the Steelers this year, which I don't expect. But do you want to get to the last thing?
We'll get to the Julio Jones. I just want to quickly bring up the offensive line changes they made, and they made a couple. One is they signed Juwan James. For those who don't know, he was the guy who was on the Broncos and tore his Achilles, so the Ravens signed him to basically it was a 2-year, $3.25 million deal. They're going to pay him about $500,000 to rehab. He'll have a cap hit of $250,000, and then he'll compete for that right tackle spot next year. And so basically the idea would be worst case scenario, Villanueva does not they don't want to keep Villanueva for the second year. Juwan James kind of becomes your right tackle after Villanueva. Or best case scenario, Villanueva stays on for that second year as kind of like a swing tackle. And so you have Juwan James, Villanueva, Tyree Phillips, and Ronnie Stanley basically being your top 4 tackles. I see this as I call it it's like a smart move. It's a move that a lot of Ravens fans were a little confused about. But basically, you essentially have your right tackle might be for the next 2-3 years in Juwan James, and then the other one was Michael Schofield, who's a guard. I believe he can play tackle. He's more of an immediate backup role. Mm-hmm. He was started for the Broncos for Super Bowl 50. He was on the Panthers a couple years ago. So basically, they got some veteran offensive line additions. So it's got some more depth there, which is always good. So basically, the Falcons traded Julio Jones to the Titans for a second rounder next year, a fourth rounder 2 years from now.
Was it actually officially announced?
Yeah. He's now practicing.
Okay, yeah. So it was a second and a fourth?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just didn't know what the full package was. But
I think 2023, so not 20. It's a second 2022, fourth 2023, and then they get back a sixth round, I believe, 2020.
That's honestly kind of expected, though, right? Julio was never going to fetch a first with how old he is now, and he's a different player now than he was, even just 3 to 4 years ago. I did see your tweet the other day. I think he might be underselling his impact with the Titans. I know Tannehill, okay, let's just say it, not a top 7 quarterback over here, maybe around 11 to 13 range. But now you add him to an offense with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown. I'm like, I'm like now I'm like forgetting I'm like forgetting like all their weapons.
It's Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds, and then Jono Smith left.
Left.
Humphrey's left. Yep.
And Corey Davis left.
Yeah. I mean, you're still like, a 1-2 tandem of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I mean, not a lot of teams can match that. Off the top of my head, maybe 2 can match that. I mean, A.J. Brown, I think, is one of the more under. Okay, I mean, I think Cleveland can match it when healthy, with Landry and Beckham.
Right.
I mean, other than that, I mean, it's tough. I mean, Seattle's receiving core, I think, is pretty decent.
Lockett and Metcalf, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can match it. So yeah, I mean, basically, you only 2 to 3 teams tops.
Cowboys, Cooper,
Dallas, Arizona with Hopkins. They have a good duo, I think, there as well. But that's a scary offense. And then you add Derrick Henry there. They have a tight end. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh yeah, bro, their defense sucks. Their defense sucks." Yeah, okay, we get it. Their defense is definitely it's not elite. I'll say that, but I definitely think that this trade helps them and it catapults them up to being a contender in the AFC. I'm not saying that they can beat the Chiefs because I don't know if they can. I don't know if anyone can beat the Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl for next many years. But I think they're in that tier 1B, tier 2A with Baltimore and Buffalo and maybe Miami if Tua plays real well, or Cleveland if they take another step forward this year, or hell, if Pittsburgh surprises people again this year. There's plenty of other teams as well. I'm probably forgetting. Maybe the Chargers if Justin Herbert plays well, they could be in a tier below. But they're definitely, I think, in that second tier now, even with the trade. And the trade made sense because now they have another huge weapon. They lost those 2 big receivers. They lost Jonnu Smith at tight end. You replace them with Julio Jones, add him with A.J. Brown. They have a couple other receivers, and you have Derrick Henry. That's a scary offense. I'll say that.
Yeah. So
what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So my thoughts are that you're right. Like they don't have much of a defense.
Yeah.
They basically retooled their entire secondary. But here's where I'll slightly disagree with their offense. Their offense right now, the way it's run, it is a run-heavy offense. Okay? That's the thing, right? And with Julio Jones, so Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are going to be as effective as Derrick Henry. Now, here's the issue. With that defense, when teams have a good offense, bad defense, that basically means you're now talking about shootouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, right? You have a run-first offense and in shootouts. Like, this is the reason why they say Ravens might not be able – like, last couple of years, Ravens probably can't compete with Kansas City or Buffalo. That's my main concern. So, like, yes, do they have the offense? Theoretically, sure. But their style of play does not dictate well with shootouts. And if that's the way they might have to play, especially in the bigger competition, they may struggle. So that's basically my thoughts. And then I think that of some of these changes that they've made, like you replace Clowney with Dupree, Farley with Adoree Jackson, I think Corey Davis with Julio Jones. I mean, Josh Reynolds with Adam Humphrey. So
yeah.
So I mean I think these might be lateral moves, but this was always going to be a good team with those players. Now you just got some other parts in there.
Like the Steelers when they had the killer bees, but the defense was not very good. It kind of reminds me in that kind of way.
Yeah. So what I would say is my point being is, yes, are they a good team, but are they going to be able to contend with the Chiefs? We'll see. I mean, that's the thing, and I think that run game. I don't think that run game works well with shootouts. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't think that could work. And then we're going to talk about one last story, which is a college football playoff expansion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a long time coming. I think it's coming after 2023, if I'm not mistaken, right? I believe.
I'll double check.
I believe it's in a couple years. Not after this season, the next season, or it's not after the next 2 seasons. I think it's after 2023 is when they'll officially expand to 12. I was in favor of 8 to start. I get with 12 though, you get the 6 conference champions, and I guess that's obviously the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, Pac-12, and what's the 6th?
Conference? No, it's not Conference USA. It's not MAC.
It's the one with
Pac-12, the Big 10, Big 12,
ACC, SEC. What's the other one that they're having?
Ooh,
I can't remember what it is, but it's the bigger. I think it's one that has like Coastal Carolina in it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe, but yeah.
So that makes sense, and then you have 6 at-large bids for the next 6 best teams that they think are, like the 6 best teams in the country, outside of those conference champions. So, say, you have Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, whoever comes out of the Pac-12, Oklahoma, and then Coastal Carolina, something like that. Then you can go through all the conferences and pick out what 6 teams you think are the best coming out right there. So, like LSU, something like that, And the one thing that got me thinking, if VT is back on the upswing by then, can you imagine a college football playoff game at Lane Stadium at night? I mean, I think that would shake that would probably be the loudest we've ever heard it there. That would probably produce multiple earthquakes. I mean, that would be something I'd love. And Tech would actually have a shot at getting there if they were actually a pretty good team. That's the thing. Like they have the capabilities to be a top 15 team in the country with the talent that they usually bring in. It's just, the coaching and a whole bunch of other factors. But this has been a long time coming. Tired of seeing the same 4 teams in. It sounds like the top 4 teams get a bye, and then the next 8 teams will play each other
right
on with the highest seed at the school, which makes sense. And then you have, your big, the teams that win, then they go play the top 4, and then you go that basically, which is basically what the semifinals.
Yeah,
but it was basically the semifinals anyway. And then you have the national championship. So I like it. I know what Bill Hancock said a long time ago. We're not going to expand, bro. We're not going to expand. No, we're never going to do this. Yeah, okay. It's about money. It's always been about money with you. That's why they're doing this. Sure, it's going to help, sell tickets, and it's going to be something new. But money, man. That's all this is.
Yeah, so like my thoughts are like, it's a long time coming. I think you hit all the nail on the head. I think VT could get there. I like the fact that
we'll probably get blown out, but who cares?
yeah, no. Well, what I wanted to point out was like it's the same thing with like all-star voting. It's like a popularity contest. I would just like an arbitrary system. Like I think that like there should be like Cy Young, MVP voting. It's always going to be teams that are winning. It's always going to be the popular teams. It's always going to be the big market teams. What I like is, it's going to be, okay, it's going to be purely, like the first 6 spots are going to be purely based off record. All right, take all the conference championship, take all the conference champions, find the 6 best teams. All right, you're in. All right, out of the remaining teams, find the next 6 best teams there. All right, they're in. That literally takes 30 seconds to explain. Right,
it's so easy, and you can tell by the records that they have and who they've beaten. There's probably not going to be a lot of discussion for some of these teams because they'll be 10-2, 11-1. Say you have LSU, right? They lost to Alabama. They're not going to get to the SEC championship game. Free right there. They'll go in. Well, why would you not? I mean, it just makes it more fair, I think, and it will be a lot of fun to watch. I mean, look, how good the ratings are going to be for those games.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially you're going to get some of these. Yeah. I think you have a good point there because what people underestimate is once you look at some of these mid-market teams, like even a team like Virginia Tech, a team like Coastal Carolina, a team like Stanford, a team like Oregon, they have dedicated fans. So even if they were to get in, just by like for 1 year, like you would get a lot of ratings. It's just that people think big market, like the teams that get a lot of the primetime games are the teams. That's not necessarily true. It's every team, like even North Dakota State would get ratings because the people there are dedicated. Like, I mean, there might be some that are exception, but I think that people are really underestimating that. So, I mean, that's going to be something interesting to see, and I think that will conclude our show.
Yeah, and one more thing. If you want to watch the NHL playoffs, the Final Four has been set. Vegas will play Montreal, and then the defending champions will go for 2 in a row. They'll play Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay will play the Islanders for a chance to try to defend their crown. So that's that with the NHL, and I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So we'll come back. We'll probably come back next week.
Right,
next week around 2:30, 2:40, and thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you all so much.